Good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Brown in 44 Days Radio Sinoland. I am doing the program today on video, trying it for the first time. This is actually an installment, an article for the Moscow-Beijing Express on the Saker. So I will be posting it there. Right now I'm having problems with my WordPress, so I won't be able to get it on my website, but I will put it on SoundCloud as a sound recording too. The title today is called Russian Black Hat, Chinese White Hat. All right, let's get started. If you have not read Russian President Vladimir Putin's October 2015 Valdai speech and subsequent question and answer session, you are missing out on a real treat. He has essentially been saying the same thing for years, going back at least as far as his hard-hitting Munich speech in February 2007. Both of these speeches are hyperlinked in the article. In the interim, at the annual United Nations General Assembly speeches and previous Valdai talks, President Putin has come out foursquare against Western colonialism and global empire. Almost all of his previous anti-West declarations have been carefully couched in diplomatic obliqueness and inference. He would lambaste certain countries, which of course meant NATO, and countries that think they are the world's policemen, obviously the United States, etc. Putin would avoid ad hominem attacks targeting Western leaders, although he once correctly said U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry lied, and that is also hyperlinked. Must have been a bad day. Otherwise, being the behind the diplomatic legalese, everybody knew who Putin was talking about without naming names. Using the black hat, white hat motif, I guess we could say that for a number of years, Russia's president has been sporting a gray hat on the world diplomatic scene. However, this year's Valdai talk was different. The gray hat got tossed aside and Putin defiantly wore the blackest of hats. He said, "Recently, the United States conducted the first test of the anti-missile defense system in Europe. What does this mean? It means we were right when we argued with our American partners. They were simply trying yet again to mislead us and the whole world. To put it plainly, they were lying." Americans are liars, so what else is new? Ditto all of Uncle Sam's slavish satraps in Eurangloland. But it takes on a whole different and refreshing dimension when the president of Russia says it. The U.S. ambassador to Russia, Jack Matlock, was at the Valdai conference that day. Matlock is an old-time Cold Warrior and Sovietologist, but since the Western rape of Russia after the fall of the USSR, he has occasionally shown some sympathy for the Slavic worldview. Nonetheless, Matlock represents the interests of America's deep state, and Putin was ready to pounce. After getting Matlock to concede that America's militarized foreign policy is largely driven by the lust for defense industry profits, Putin gave a withering riposte that began with, "Mr. Ambassador, I find your arguments unconvincing. I have the greatest respect for your experience and diplomatic skills, of which you have given us a flawless demonstration, avoiding a direct answer. Well, you did answer my question, but not without some embellishments." It was the start of a long, scorching attack on all that is evil with U.S. and Western colonial empire, using Ambassador Matlock as an in-person punching bag. I would have loved to have had a camera beamed on Mr. Matlock during Putin's tour de force to watch his face and body language as he got a verbal beating few diplomats receive in a public venue. I'm surprised he didn't walk out, but decorum and maybe an innate sense of historical guilt kept him in his seat. People often ask me why Russia's towering partner in the anti-West alliance, China, does not come out swinging at Uncle Sam on the world stage. They opine that humanity needs another powerful voice, like Russia's, to speak truth to imperial power. Yes, Cuba, Argentina, Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, North Korea, Eritrea, and occasionally a few other countries routinely denounce Western colonialism in the public sphere. But let's face it, China and Russia are in a class all their own. They are Popeye's geopolitical forearms, as it were, with bellies full of spinach and the superpower clout to land a knockout punch on Uncle Sam's glass jaw. So President Xi Jinping, where are you? Well, he is here, there, and everywhere on the world stage. But the Chinese have a millennial modus operandi of wearing a white hat in public when it comes to international relations, from the citizen on the street up to the highest levels of power. When I talk to working or white-collar class Chinese, they obviously see I am a Westerner. Even speaking Chinese together, it takes a lot of peeling off layers to get them to bare their souls in rage about the West's sordid and genocidal colonial hegemony. It is just not in the DNA of the Chinese psyche to be face-to-face confrontational. You almost always find out about any animus or disagreement via a third party, or asymmetrically from where you least expect it, out of the blue, or red as it were. These kinds of rope-a-dope and flutter and faint tactics may have been branded by world champion boxing genius Muhammad Ali, but they have been honed and tested for thousands of Chinese years, going back to the 36 stratagems and Sun Tzu's art of war. Only one Chinese leader broke this long-standing mold, revolutionary Mao Zedong. Part of his zeal for transforming Chinese society and politics was to do away with the old thoughts and practices. His in-your-face diplomacy against Western capitalism and the paper tiger America would make Putin and any other current anti-West leader blush for their timidity. Few modern world leaders could or can match the chairman's brilliant use of mass media and diplomatic sword fighting. He inspired and still does today many millions of anti-Western freedom fighters across the planet. If you listen to Xi Jinping's speeches and interviews, he is just as scathing and insulting as Mao or the 2015 Valdai Putin, but it is classically steeped in the art of war and 36 stratagems. He doesn't say it, but he does. Baba Beijing detests America's puerile microphone and Twitter diplomacy, finding it beneath the dignity of any world leader or power. Yes, Baba Beijing can see Putin hurling thunderbolts at the heart of Western hegemony, and they are privately doing a stadium wave in the National People's Congress, Central and Political Standing Committees to cheer him on. But no, they simply cannot imagine themselves doing the same thing. I empathize with all my fellow anti-imperialists who are pining for a quiver full of Oriental lightning bolts to be heaved with a vengeance across the wide Pacific. But it is a wishful waste of energy, for as much as we may desire otherwise, Mao's vocal rhetoric was truly a Chinese anomaly. That being the case, you have to believe me that it is all right. Baba Beijing is extracting its kilo of Western colonial flesh in myriad ways, for which Uncle Sam has no answer other than endless false flags, billion-dollar color revolutions, psyops, and bullying. Western spydom can only berate China while it steals wholesale petaflops of imperial governmental and industrial data, and its Ministry of State Security, which is abbreviated MSS, is working closely with Russia's FSB for the good fight. NATO offers Africans its German-based AFRICOM and Obama's secret armies to wreak death and destruction among the world's weakest nations. Instead, China builds railroads, ports, hospitals, and schools while forgiving billions in sovereign debt that is owed by the great continent's poorest. America is reduced to pathetically sending a destroyer into China's Nansha archipelago waters, a brazen insult to President Xi only 5 weeks after his state visit and private meetings with Obama in the White House. This while the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, Navy furiously builds artificial islands, 3-kilometer runways, lighthouses, and living quarters there. NATO spends billions trying to overthrow legitimate, citizen-supported governments, assassinating or deposing leaders, and China responds by constructing tens of thousands of low-income apartments in Venezuela and signing trade deals and currency swaps with the Ukraine or whatever's left of it. In any case, the white hat, black hat method of persuasion has a long and illustrious history because it often succeeds by playing on the tendencies of the human condition, the innate desire for acceptance and redemption. Whether you are business owners trying to close the deal, cops needing valuable information to track a lead, or are Xi and Putin trying to change the world order for the betterment of all humanity, this good guy, bad guy gambit often gets results. So instead of wishing the impossible, that Beijing go against their long-standing way of doing diplomacy, let's cheer on Putin's Slavic thunderbolts and Xi's asymmetrical stiletto switchblades, because they are both stabbing deeply into the West's imperial heart of darkness. This is Jeff J. Brown, China analyst and author in Beijing, reporting from Radio Sinoland 44 days. Have a great evening.